Hi everyone. Welcome to the new episode of Yotewo podcast. And today we have our guests, founders of Motics.ai, Harvinder and Salinna. Guys, thanks so much for coming. First of all, it's an honor to have you here as a guest.
Thank you.
Let's start maybe with a bit of introduction about yourself and Motics.ai. Maybe tell the audience about your product, how you started it.
Absolutely. So my name's Harvinder, medical doctor by background. Used to work in the NHS from 2020, right at the very beginning of COVID when things were all on fire, so to speak, all the way up to about end of 22, beginning of 23, when I then left to go into Motics full time. And I met Salinna quite a few years before then. It would have been 2018.
Yeah.
And,
How did you guys meet?
Yeah, I mean, probably a story I think Salinna can tell us better than I can nowadays.
Okay.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Alex, for inviting us to this podcast. So I'm Salinna. I am an electronic engineer by background. So I graduated with a PhD in electronic engineering. Basically spent a lot of my academic life discovering and coming up with very efficient deep neural networks for speech enhancement algorithms and basically anything that processes biosignals. So I was spending a lot of time trying to make it efficient, compact, low-powered. So that was my entire PhD, basically.
Yeah.
Met Harvinder back in 2018. So I got sick of academia, writing papers. So I wanted to explore entrepreneurship, explore the world of startups. So I got into this program called Kickstart back in the day. I think they're called Kickstart Global now.
Yeah.
So we joined Kickstart as individual, and that was how I met Harvinder, basically.
Okay. Nice.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
And I think we went on a bit of a tangent to get to where we are today. I mean, you know, in many ways, we started off doing something very different. So Motics today is not what it used to be. It used to be focusing on stroke rehabilitation.
Okay.
We moved away from that. I think, you know, that's what COVID will do to you is, you know, a bit of a time away from each other, time away from the business.
Yeah.
We'll give you some time to reflect on, you know, the real problems, what really needs to be solved and how do you scale it.
Exactly.
So when we came back in 23, we then realized what the real problems are we need to solve. And that's where we are today.
Yeah. Amazing. I mean, obviously I know the product, but maybe can you tell the audience what exactly is it doing?
Of course, yeah. So the big problem we're solving is clinic operations, primarily in private clinics. So currently they spend about 40% of their OPEX just on hiring people to do operations roles. So that's admin people, marketing, sales, just to get people through the door, just get patients in to really be seen. And so what we've done is use AI agents to automate all the key parts of the clinic operations lifecycle. So that means emails, billing, phone call, notes as well, and really package in a single solution. So much easier for clinics to use. It's not 6 different products, it's just one. It makes it much easier for them to adopt. And because of that, we've been scaling across the country and across the world now.
Amazing. That's great. Okay, I'll get to the next question. So Harvinder, I checked the LinkedIn, your background. So you were a doctor and you know the NHS from the very inside of the organization. And can you maybe share whether there's something specific that you saw, you know, that kind of pushed you towards solving this problem in the NHS, or was it just somewhere on the side?
It was the fact that we were using very highly qualified professionals to do a lot of just the day-to-day operations work of keeping organizations like us afloat, very simply.
Yeah.
So the fact that many junior doctors don't have adequate training because of the fact that they're just keeping the service afloat, I think is a real disservice to these people who've done years of very hard graft at, you know, good universities to get to the stage where they're now working as qualified doctors. You know, they have full licenses to practice. And yet most of their day to day, they're doing emails, notes, phone calls, and stuff like this. You know, this is not a job to give to someone who's got a 6-year medical degree. Exactly. But this is to someone who can, you know, focus on operations. But obviously then hiring operation staff then takes away from clinical budget. So how do you get around that problem? Yeah. And that's where we saw the real burning problem for us to address at Motics is that essentially organizations can't scale. They don't have infinite money. They can't scale the number of team members they have. Yeah. But AI is a lot cheaper and in some ways a lot better in terms of efficiency.
That's true. Yeah, fair enough. And is NHS also one of your targets to implement Motics too? Or exactly.
No, not at all. It's quite a funny one. So we don't approach the NHS. Ironically, the NHS approach us on multiple occasions and continue to. So we do primarily all our work is in private sector. So we sell to private clinics, private organizations and enterprises in that space. Yeah. And ironically, a lot of them also work in the NHS and then, you know, knock on our doors very shortly afterwards and say, oh, yes, I know we're doing some work with our clinic, but how about we also do it with the NHS as well? Yeah. So we end up, you know, duplicating contracts and, you know, doubling what we have, which is a lovely problem. But this is a problem that, our customers really love what we do. We love our customers. We love helping them and really solving their challenges. So,
yeah,
it's a nice problem to have.
amazing. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so the next one is you guys have recently closed the round and you fundraised, in my opinion, unusually good amount for the pre-seed. The pre-seeds in the UK are usually what?
Yeah.
Above $500,000. Yours is way bigger, which is a great achievement. So maybe you guys can share two things. So the strategy that you used to fundraise, and then the second one, the overall experience. Yeah.
Momentum and really just speed, ultimately. I mean,
Yeah.
we were in a lovely position where, from day one, we were revenue generating. Our customers loved us, referred us to others. And because of that, we were in a lovely position where we've never had to go and acquire customers. They just come to us, and we really thank our customers for all that. And, if you're listening, we do thank you. You're helping to build Motics to what it is today. And so because of that, obviously the traction came really early. And in our space, that's rather unique, to see pre-seed companies have traction, have revenue, be, essentially cash flow positive from very, very much day one.
Yeah.
That's rare, very rare, even in the AI space where costs are quite high.
True.
So when we then started speaking to investors, they saw that very quickly and realized that actually we were on something in terms of efficiency and how we could scale very efficiently.
Yeah, that's amazing. And did you guys approach just institutional investors, VCs, or some angels as well? Or is it just the VCs?
Well, we have really great angels as well. I mean, some of our angels, again, they know who they are. They are fantastic advocates for Motics, and they've referred us to other VCs, other angels, brought in investments, other connections. So
amazing.
we're really blessed to have really great angels with us on this journey. I think, again, it can be, it's hard out there. Sometimes there are some angels who aren't the best, but every single one of our angels, I can say hand on heart, is fantastic. So again, if you're listening, also thank you to you as well.
Amazing. That's amazing. And also for the amount of the round, did you guys kind of knew the exact number that you're raising, or was it just kind of organically coming in from you?
Very calculated.
Okay.
So we again, this is not our first time doing sort of Motics, should we say?
Yeah.
The first time we did fundraising, we were very much like make up a number, put it on the wall, see what sticks, and go from there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the reality is that doesn't play.
Yeah.
That doesn't really work very well. The reality that you need to do is come to a calculation. It can be a simple one, but a calculation is needed.
Yeah.
Where you just say, how much do you actually need? What does that get you to? What in terms of your milestones does that unlock for you? And then from there, what does your next round look like? So almost you need to design your next round and work backwards to say, if we're trying to raise, X amount of money, then what do we need to raise now to achieve that?
Yeah, there was a bit of financial modeling involved, and then you have to work backwards. So where do you want to get to in the next, 12 to 18 months? What's the ARR that you're trying to target, and what do you need to unlock to achieve that? And then working backwards to understand, how many salespeople do you need to scale to at least 100 clinics, for example.
Yeah.
And then also making sure that you have that 18-month runway, but then for the amount that you're planning to raise. So for us, the amount that we got to was enough to get us to at least, a comfortable 24-month runway, actually.
That's amazing. That's actually...
I mean, and this is the benefit for us is basically it's all accelerational. We're in a lovely position. You've got revenue coming in, customers increasing every single week. Amazing. And so we're in that position where essentially this is all growth funding. So at a pre-seed company, again, really blessed to be in this position. It's not easy, and sometimes you can't even design it that way. It just happens.
Yeah.
So, good cards got dealt with. Now we've just got to make the most of it.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, that's a really good advice, actually, because I meet a lot of founders and they have this number in their mind, but it's not supported by anything. And in our case, we had the same situation as you guys, because we had the number in mind, but we did the calculations, and then even the VC that is our lead investor, they kind of guided us through how to plan it for 12 months, how to do the allocations for the next round and things like that. So it's actually really, really good advice. Okay, you touched point actually on this next question that I have. So yeah, I know you guys were post-revenue when you did the round. A lot of founders, which is in my opinion one of the biggest mistakes, they skip this part and they go straight to the fundraising. And in our case, we're similar to you guys. We had revenue post-revenue coming before we closed the round, before we even started the round. So my question is to you guys: what would be your advice to founders? How did you guys achieve this initial revenue? You mentioned on the organic bit. We had the similar situation, but maybe if you can share why it's actually the better way, and how to do it the best way. Because in our case, like what we did, we essentially had the front end of the app working, the back end was done manually. So that's how we kind of like invested very little into technology, it's a revenue, and then got the investment. Maybe if you can share your bit on that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with the product that we have, it's an absolutely massive like undertaking. If you think about the amount of like engineering work, it's gargantuan. Like it is really, really big project.
Yeah.
But that's also why it's got huge potential. And so what we focused on really was just de-risking each of the key parts from day one, so that we could prove out each of them works in isolation.
Amazing.
And once we could do that, we were then focusing on, okay, which one can we productize first and sell very, very quickly. And I remember actually our first customer coming in. We met her very randomly at a conference. In fact, we weren't even looking to speak with her, but she approached us because I remember the funny story actually. Salinna had a sign on her backpack about what we were doing. This is the very first time we started out sort of talking about Motics publicly at that time.
Yeah.
And it was very random. And I remember Salinna had it and she was like, oh, what's that? What's Motics do? And we just struck up a conversation actually, which was really lovely.
Yeah.
And, we then, from there, she then said, oh, I'll check it out. And, 2 or 3 months went by, didn't hear anything. So I assumed that she looked at, wasn't interested.
Yeah.
Couldn't be further from the truth. She'd actually signed up, 2 or 3 months later.
Nice.
We thought completely forgotten. She hadn't forgotten. Signed up within 2 days, was raving about the product.
Amazing.
Had only amazing things to say. Because of that, then started the snowball effect. And that really, that first, our first customer snowballed everything.
That's amazing.
From her, then the next 10 to 15 customers came on really quickly because they all knew her very well. They all vouched for her. She vouched for them.
Yeah.
And because of that, it's just these network effects ultimately.
So just referrals organically.
Exactly, right?
That's
and so
amazing.
at that early phase, we were focusing on just making a product that people don't just love, but they literally knock down doors to tell people about.
That's cool.
And I think that's something that you can often overlook is a product good enough?
Yeah.
How do you define good enough? What's that standard look like?
Yeah.
And I think for Salinna and I, our standards are ridiculously high. Like it has to pass a very high bar to be deployed with our customers.
That's amazing.
And so because of that, the customers rave about it and they all refer on other customers into the network. So again, really thankful to our customers for enabling that.
Great. That's amazing. Okay, Salinna, the next one is for you. So again, I checked the LinkedIn, and you're not the first time founder. And as I understand, your other project was in a bit different vertical. My question is, what's the best learning that you can share with the audience as a second time founder? Like something maybe that you can share.
I think when we were working on the first startup, when I was working on the first startup, I was still quite new to the entrepreneurship world.
Yeah.
So we focused a lot on innovation. So how do we make the best senses? How do we make it the experience seamless? And how do we get the most accurate data and stop collecting these mass amount of data to help optimize our agriculture. So at the time it was on agriculture, agri-tech, basically the first startup. So I think the lesson is that obviously that startup, because we all had our own commitments, we didn't actually continue pursuing that startup, but we did win a lot of awards on like innovation and things like that. So the lesson there is, it's great to innovate. It's great to have a great product, but you also need to have the commercial skill.
Yeah.
So I think having that balance between building as well as the ability to sell. I think a lot of startup founders, they make the mistake of, they get really excited about pilots and securing their LOIs. I think it's great. It's great that is traction, but conversation changes when you actually start to like ask them to pay up. So, exactly. Converting those LOIs into paid contracts or free pilots into paid pilots, those are completely different conversations. So having that conversation early on, I think, is the key indicator to like the success of your startup.
Yeah, amazing.
And I think that's a good topic to delve into, because also, if you think about it, so many founders think they can't do sales or that they have to hire for a sales role. And I'm sure you probably have this as well with you, is that ultimately you are the best salesperson for your
founder-led sales.
Doesn't matter who you hire, they're not going to be as good as you.
100%.
You have to really dig into founder-led sales. And that was something that even I was thinking, well, sales is not really my forte. What can I do there? Just start. That's it. In the words of Nike, just do it, because you'll realize that actually sales really isn't a forced process. It's just problem solving.
Yeah.
That's it.
100%.
Very simply, it's listening and problem solving.
Yeah.
And that makes you very, very approachable,
Yeah.
especially if you know your industry. So, for me, I'm a doctor. I can go to a clinic. They'll say, oh, well, we both worked in actually similar NHS trusts way back when.
Yeah.
And then within 2 minutes, they know who I am. I know who they are. And we say, okay, what problems are you facing as a clinic? How can we help you?
Yeah.
And it's very straightforward from there.
Very straightforward.
So founder-led sales, you can never overrate it enough. It needs to be done at the early stage.
Yeah, 100% agreed on that. That's great. Okay, my next question is related a little bit to what we do at Yotewo. We're always asking people who come to the podcast about how did you guys approach early tech hiring? Like maybe if you can talk us through for the tech teams, did you have any challenges? Like in general, how did you start on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one. So it kind of comes down to the culture that we're trying to build as well at Motics. So Salinna and I, very efficient at what we do. I think that's probably kind of a key word that underlines everything is efficiency. Yeah, and that's great to an extent. But trying to find people to bring in who are equally as efficient, equally as high performing, not the fastest of things that can be rushed. So it does take time to do. But I think probably Salinna can yield a bit more on this in terms of the technicalities.
Yeah. So there's a bit of balance that we are trying to work with here. So for example, we have existing customers already. So they obviously, as you would know, have a lot of feature requests. They will ask for more and more of the product. Yeah. So I think with a lot of these menial tasks, like, how do we make the onboarding flow better? I think these we obviously got Yotewo to help us with. Yeah. But we also have the other side where we are also spending a bit more time into screening the right people that we want to bring in-house. So things that we can achieve very quickly, we outsource them to Yotewo. But in terms of IP generation and developing the next big thing for the company, those we plan to bring in-house, obviously.
Yeah, it's ultimately time, isn't it? That's what we're gaining. Yeah, is that a lot of these are bug fixes more than anything that we need support with, and it's either Salinna or does them or I do them, but then that's time away from raising or from customers, and so when you just look at the time, what makes sense? Like, absolutely, we need to hire, but we need to hire the right people. And you can't rush finding the right person that comes into the team. So it's something that's needed in the meantime.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think the hybrid model is always it proves to work the best for most startups actually. So that's a good answer. Okay, Salinna, I have another one for you. So you are a CTO, and I really recently, especially, I really enjoy seeing a lot of women-led startups, women CTOs, and I really see this tendency growing in the UK. We even recently started working with one VC that invests specifically in founder-led and founder-focused, women founder-focused startups. And how was your experience from that angle? I'm just wondering, in general, did you see any challenges from that or anything else?
I think we've been really fortunate being a startup in the UK and Europe. I think we are still really have a huge emphasis on diversity and inclusion, and also empowering women in tech and in startups. So I think we've been really fortunate to be surrounded by a community that are, focused and more driven to empower women. I think I haven't really faced any, hurdles just because I'm a woman in tech. And I guess it also helps to have a male co-founder, so there's gender parity within the company. I'm not saying that I wouldn't have been able to do it as a female founder by myself, but it's definitely better to have parity, have diversity in thinking as well. I've also seen femtech companies with both a male and a female co-founder, and I think having that diversity in thought and diversity in narrative brings out the best of the company. But I think it's great to see a lot of people with this mindset of and with this want to empower women in tech.
Oh, I think it's also good that there's loads of initiatives, right?
Initiatives.
Exactly,
like C Ventures, for example. They've been fantastic. And there is definitely a movement in this space, clearly, where people are realizing that and even if you look at the data, women in executive roles in startups, they just do better. The outcomes are better.
Exactly.
So even from a data perspective, you can't argue it. So I still can't understand why things are so, still not there yet.
Still, yeah, not there. Yeah, good.
But we're getting there.
Yeah,
100%. That's the main thing. Okay, so the next one is just a bit of more general philosophical question. Guys, can you share what was this, if there was one, the hardest decision that you guys faced as a founders? Maybe it was with a team, with pivoting, with someone else. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the best lesson we learned is, don't fall in love with the product, fall in love with the problem and the people you're solving it for.
Yeah,
that's the real crux of a startup. And I think it's a really easy, like, first time founder mistake. I know, I definitely made it, and it's really easy to make, and you still see it all the time. Is people love the tech, they love building things.
Yeah.
But what are you building for? That's the question. Is it building for yourself? In which case it's a lovely hobby, a lovely side project.
Yeah.
If you're building it to solve a real problem for a customer, have you spoken with that customer? Have you actually truly listened to what they're actually saying?
Yeah.
Because sometimes the best answer is the one they haven't said out loud, but the one they're showing you with their actions.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think once we spent time literally knocking on doors, sitting in clinics and actually spending time with them, the narrative changed very quickly from, like we call it version 1 of Motics, back from when we were doing stroke rehabilitation, to version 2 today.
Yeah.
We were just saying there's no way they can take this, like bleeding edge technology of like biosensors for stroke, when the reality is they're spending, hundreds of thousands of pounds a year just to hire people to answer phone calls.
Yeah.
That's totally wild, isn't it? When you look at the problems that you think are problems versus seeing them in reality, you start to wake up and realize what you should actually be doing. And I think that's the biggest piece of advice I give to anyone nowadays is don't fall in love with the solution, fall in love with the problem and the people that you're solving it for.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. I think being a startup founder, you're constantly tested on your resilience. Yeah. So as with finding a job, it's similar to startups. I know that, we've made a milestone in raising our pre-seed. But before that, we've also faced countless of rejections from VC. VC funds. We also had customers say no, things like that. It could be for reasons like, it's not within our budget, blah, blah, blah. So that really does create doubt. And you need to just have this really strong belief. Having like a co-founder that is with you during that journey as well, that helps. So you're constantly being tested. And the other thing is, I think you need to be really adaptable. Again, don't fall in love with your product. You're not your company. You're not your product. But being in the AI space, things change so quickly in the AI space. You are constantly on your toes. You're constantly competing with other startups, established companies, scale-ups. So you just need to be on your toes, be adaptive. And, unfortunately, it's just not something that you will ever get comfortable with, being in a startup. It's not like a comfortable 9 to 5.
I say if you're comfortable, you're not doing it right. You're not pushing hard enough.
That's true. That's a great answer. Okay, and I think just the last one from my side. So what are your plans, guys, for Motics.ai for the next, say, year or actually 24 months? So what's the plan?
Well, the reality is everything's moving so quickly that it probably changes month to month nowadays in terms of like plans get accelerated, which is a lovely problem again. So we're already well established in the UK in terms of private sector. So we're expanding operations here in the UK. So that's going to continue, and we're also moving out to Europe, to one of our big markets there. Can't say which one just yet, but we do have a foothold in this country, I can say, that is growing quickly. And we have some work actually in the US market as well that's starting to take front. So we're, small team at pre-seed taking on 3 geographies is nuts. But the irony is, the US approached us, and same with this other country. They came to us and they said, hey, we represent basically the largest, group for this country. How about we have a chat and demo and see how it works? And this is the benefit of product-led growth in many ways. It's the customers, they come to you, which is wild. When you think about that, it sounds like too good to be true, right?
True,
but that's the reality of when you obsess over product to the point where you've done the clinic's job, you've done your customer's job, you know exactly what they need. You give it to them. it's the best feeling.
Yeah,
honestly.
that's true. I agree. Yeah. Salinna, any additional?
Yeah, so I echo exactly what Harvinder has just said. So looking forward to not just, expanding our market penetration, but also growing the team. So,
Yeah.
I finally don't have to just see Harvinder on a day-to-day basis. It's good to see other faces as well.
I thought you loved my face on our stand-ups.
But it's also good to graduate from, being hands-on, like too hands-on. It's still, we'll still be hands-on, obviously. We'll like, Harvinder, he'll still be hands-on with the sales, and I'll still be hands-on with coding. But we have to start to graduate to become more take on a more managerial role as well. So like managing larger teams.
Yeah, amazing.
And I look forward to those lessons.
Amazing. Guys, thanks so much. I think that's about it. Thank you very, very much for coming. It was great to have a chat. I'll leave all the links and all the details in the description. And yeah, guys, thank you very much. It was a great, short, but very fruitful and lovely chat.
Appreciate
thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. Cheers.
Thanks for having us.